So often in agencies, we have no idea what's actually happened as agency owners and managers, and even producers have a hard time keeping. Like if you ask the average producer, "Hey, what have you done this month or this week?" A lot of them will just kind of start going off memory to try to tell you, and they don't really know. Um, and so sometimes they can be shocked at the end of the month. They've been real busy. At the end of the month, they're surprised if they even actually get an accounting of it. They're surprised how little they've done, or maybe how much they've done. Either way, but they don't see that data, and so AMP, of course, throws that out there with the sidebar. They see how much they've bound. They see what they've accomplished today as far as key accomplishments, like how many new deals, how many quotes, how many bound policies, how many, well, when I say quotes, how many presentations rather, how many bound policies, how many deals they've handed off to somebody else. They can kind of see where they're at with their next actions. Are they getting things done or churning or forgetting things? So very, very powerful there. But you can go into as a user, or like a producer or sales agent or an agency manager or agency owner. You can come here to the historical pipeline. Now, again, also, you get daily emails. We'll go into that, daily and weekly emails. So all this data is pushed out to you, so you don't have to actually come in here if you don't want to. But if you do, there's a lot more functionality. You can kind of deep dive into some things. So historical pipeline, what that means is it shows everything that's been accomplished, what got done. So it's a view into the past. What this is, let's say that, just to kind of explain how this works, let's say that this gal Ashley added a deal today, and she took it, so it was brand new, and she, in this thing here, you can move it forward as far as you want to go. Let's say that she moved it all the way to bound. So she talked to him, gathered the information, prepared the quote, presented it, bound it. She did it all in one, maybe she did it all in one phone call even. What that would show is that would show up in every single one of these stages. Because these stages show, these numbers represent what went through this stage during this time period. So if we click on, for Ashley here, if we click on this 12 and almost $8,000, there's 12 policies listed, and all 12 of these during this time period went through this stage. And you can see that some of them were bound and some of them weren't. And you can see where the current stage is now. So the ones that weren't bound are currently sitting and presented. So we look here and we can see during this time period, these are the deals that went through here. So you could also, this time you can change the time period to look at different things, but you could say, well, let's see, Heather, how many presentations did she do? So this is interesting. You can come here and say, okay, there's 28 that she presented, and we want to look at this. And of these 21, you can see which ones are bound. And you can see that the ones she didn't bind, every single one of them, she was able to actually present a quote on. So this is pretty interesting, because you could go through here and say, well, geez, how come these didn't, there's a lot of things you can do with this information. Shows other information too, the source, where things are coming from. You kind of recognize patterns that way. Of course, you can look at the totals here, click on those and show everybody. One thing that's kind of cool about the historical pipeline is folks that are non-producers, so let's say agency owners or admin that might produce a little on the side, but it's not their main job or responsibility in the agency. By not clicking producer in their user settings, leaving that unclicked so that it's not clicked as a producer, you still see anything that they bind will show up here, or anything that they do will show up in the historical pipeline, so they get credit for it. But it's presented separately from your main sales agents, because psychologically you don't want your sales agent saying, well, wait a minute, I'm doing twice as much as the boss, look at how, anyway, drawing incorrect conclusions from that. So this helps remind everyone, wait a minute, here's our peers that are, working together. These are all the sales agents, and these are people that aren't sales agents, but wow, look at, they put something on the books too, even though that's not their job. So that's kind of cool to have that separated. And then if you have anybody that if you look during into the history and you go back into a time where somebody has produced that no longer works for you, there's another little section that will show inactive, and then you can do, it's just like non-producers, you can do a little drop down, and then you'll see their names with the numbers. But that's just a way not to have to look at or see people that don't work with you anymore if you don't want it. Of course, you can expand it and look at it, but otherwise it just shows inactive, and you don't have to see their names if you don't want to. So that's a little bit about the historical pipeline. I think it's defaulted here. Oh, by the way, you can filter by user if you want, but all the users are here. You could just do that. They have this user and owner toggle. It's defaulted to owner. That what that means is, and we really need to rename that to assigned producer to be consistent, and we'll get that done. So it might say assigned producer by the time you see this video, but that means whoever this is showing by the assigned producer. So for example, let's say Ashley has a deal and it's assigned to her from the very beginning, but she has an assistant that maybe goes in and clicks, actually advances that deal through the pipeline by clicking on those different see if I can show you here. Yeah, it clicks on these different sections here to advance it. Then it doesn't matter if someone else is actually doing the clicking. All of this is going to show up underneath, by the assigned producer going through here. And I think that's what everybody intuitively expects, that these sales agents are getting credit for all of this activity. But you can also toggle it over to user, and then this shows you the information by who actually clicked on it. This can be kind of cool. So for example, let's say that you have an assistant that helps quote things, and she's the one that's going to go in with the information and get it ready, and then she'll move it into ready to let the agent know, hey, it's ready to go. You can go present it. You can kind of see those numbers and say, wow, look at, you quoted $30,000 worth of stuff. So that's kind of cool. You can use that. So anyway, that is the historical pipeline.